In the arid expanse of the Horn of Africa, where the wind sweeps dust across the horizon, and the horizon itself blurs into the ochre of the earth, survival bends to the will of heat and scarcity. The summer of 1999 arrived with a cruelty not seen in decades. The rains that should have brought life to the land came as nothing more than whispers on the wind, never reaching the thirsty ground. In 1998, the yearly rainfall had already fallen to a fraction of its norm. By the turn of the year, the skies offered barely more than a memory of water. Across the rocky plateaus east of Addis Ababa, the earth cracked in long, splintering veins. Acacia trees clung to life with skeletal branches, and the grasses had retreated to brittle yellow threads. Waterholes dried into hollow basins, leaving behind the white crust of evaporated minerals. Life in such a place narrowed to a single desperate priority: find water or perish. One small stream, fed by hidden underground springs, endured when all others failed. Its course was narrow, its flow reduced to a modest trickle, but it was enough to draw every living creature for many kilometers. Along its banks, the desperate and the powerful converged. Two forces would soon meet there, one of feline royalty, the other of cunning scavengers forged into disciplined warriors. The stream would become more than a lifeline. It would become the front line of a war that neither side could afford to lose. On the western side of the stream roamed the Bele pride. 9 adults commanded this territory, 2 dominant males, Bele and his younger brother Amari, both in the prime of their strength at 4.5 years old. Bele was the heavier of the two, his frame built from years of patrolling a range that stretched across 23 square kilometers. Amari, leaner but equally formidable, matched his brother in tenacity. Alongside them hunted 6 lionesses. Leah, Salome, Genet, Aisha, Malaika, and Fana, each seasoned in the craft of bringing down prey on open ground. Among the pride moved 6 cubs, only 7 months old, their survival dependent on the shield of their elders. The pride's strength lay in raw power. The males carried close to 200 kilograms of muscle, honed not by abundance, but by the relentless demands of guarding a vast, contested domain. The lionesses formed the pride's backbone, hunting in coordinated bursts of speed and force, keeping the cubs fed and the territory supplied with fresh kills. Across the stream, the Nafisa clan held sway. 40 spotted hyenas, led by the matriarch Nafisa, an 8-year veteran of countless hunts and battles. A twist in her jaw bore silent witness to an old fight with a rival, yet it had not dimmed her command. 2 lieutenants, Zuri and Halima, oversaw smaller hunting units, each capable of fanning out across the plains in disciplined formation. Their strength lay not in size, but in organization and endurance. Where lions relied on sudden bursts of violence, hyenas wore their enemies down with relentless pressure. Their complex social calls, a mix of whoops, laughs, and groans, carried information across the night, signaling the size of their forces and the urgency of their cause. Both sides were apex predators in their own right, but in the lean months of drought, the luxury of coexistence evaporated. The stream could not sustain them both, and the dry season would decide who would remain to claim it. At first, the encounters were cautious. The stream's banks were narrow, lined with cracked mud and low shrubs, and both sides approached with wary calculation. One dusk, the Nafisa clan arrived to find the Bele pride already drinking. The hyenas formed a loose semicircle at a distance, their heads low, but their eyes fixed on the cubs. Bele stood forward, mane bristling, his tail twitching in short, deliberate arcs. The hyena's laughter rolled across the water, not mirth but a probing signal, a test of resolve. The pride responded with stillness, a wall of muscle and amber eyes. No attack came, but the tension settled over the place like a tightening snare. The hyenas turned away that night, not in retreat, but in patience. Over the following days, the stream became a chessboard. One morning, the lionesses found a zebra. Carcass stripped to bone. The hyenas had moved in after the kill, chasing the lions off while they rested. Another night, Amari returned from patrol to find hyena tracks woven through the grass near the cubs' resting place. The provocations sharpened. Small hunting groups of hyenas began shadowing the lionesses during hunts, forcing them to abandon chases or face being outnumbered. In turn, Bele and Amari began leading deliberate incursions into hyena foraging grounds, scattering them from fresh kills. Each encounter was short, but each left its mark. Muscles ached from sprints, wounds reopened under strain, and tempers grew thin. The stream no longer felt like shared ground. It had become a contested front, and every visit carried the risk of violence. Both pride and clan waited for the moment when testing would end and war would truly begin. The break came in the cool hours before dawn. Bele had ranged out alone, patrolling a clearing near the tribe's grazing lands. The air was still, carrying only the faint scent of dust and distant antelope, until a ripple of laughter cut through the silence. 7 hyenas emerged from the brush, fanning wide to draw his focus. Their movements were measured, the arcs of a practiced trap. Bekele's eyes tracked them, but the real strike came from his left. Zuri lunged low, her jaws snapping at his hind leg, teeth seeking the vulnerable tendon. Pain flared, sharp and deep. Bele spun, claws raking across her shoulder, but more shapes surged forward. 8 hyenas now pressed in. The ring tightening, they drove him backward, each snap and lunge coordinated to bleed his strength. Far off, Amari's roar answered, a thunderclap rolling over the plain, but the distance was too great. By the time he reached the clearing, Bele was down. His mane matted with blood, his breath shallow. The hyenas scattered at his charge, but the damage was done. Bekele's chest stilled before the sun rose. What had been rivalry was now blood. Det and Amari carried it like a blade. Amari's grief hardened into purpose. By the next night, the pride moved with a cohesion that left no doubt. They were hunting not for food, but for retribution. The lionesses formed a flanking crescent, pushing through the tall grass with a predator's silence. When they found a splinter group of 6 hyenas feeding on the haunches of a wildebeest, they struck without warning. Amari drove into the center, scattering the scavengers in a storm of roars and flying dirt. 2 hyenas fell before they could. Even break formation, their bodies left where they dropped. The survivors fled into the night, but the message had been sent. The lions would give no quarter. Nafisa's response was swift. She split her forces, keeping the core of the clan close to the stream, while sending hunting units deep into lion territory. One group found the lionesses mid-hunt and harried them until they abandoned the chase. Another circled wide, following the scent of the cubs. Twice in a single week, the pride was forced to relocate their young under the cover of darkness. The clashes multiplied. Some were brief, ending with snarls and feints, others lasting minutes of raw, grinding violence. Halima's unit cornered, Malaika and Fana against a stand of acacia, their laughter echoing as they darted in to bite and retreat. The lionesses held their ground, driving the hyenas off with a final rush, but not without torn flanks and bleeding paws. Neither side could gain decisive ground. The stream's trickle grew thinner with each passing day, forcing both forces into closer proximity. The air itself seemed to tighten, carrying the scent of blood and the tension of an inevitable reckoning. Amari began to see the pattern. Nafisa would not stop until the pride was broken, and she would use relentless attrition to achieve it. The only way to end it was to strike at the head of the clan. The thought took root, and with each encounter it grew sharper, until it was the only path he could see. The sun rose behind a haze of dust, casting the savannah in muted gold. The Nafisa clan gathered at the stream, their ranks swollen with every adult the matriarch could summon. 24 strong stood in a tight, shifting mass, their shoulders brushing, their eyes locked on the open ground ahead. From the west came the answer, Amari, flanked by all 6 lionesses. Their advance was steady, deliberate, each step closing the space between the 2 forces. The cubs had been moved far from the battle's reach. This was a fight meant only for those ready to kill or die. The first impact came in a blur. Amari tore through the edge of the hyena formation, scattering 3 before driving straight for Nafisa. Her defenders surged to meet him, snapping and lunging, but the lionesses carved a path, their roars mingling with the hyena's frenzied laughter. Nafisa stood her ground, head low, jaws ready. She met Amari's charge with a sidestep and a savage bite to his shoulder, but he pressed on, ignoring the pain. His claws locked into her flanks, his weight forcing her down. Around them the battle raged. Zuri fell under Leah's weight. Halima was driven back by Salome and Genet, working in tandem. Nafisa twisted, struggling to rise, but Amari's jaws closed on her throat. The fight drained from her body in moments. The sight rippled through the clan like a shockwave. Their formation broke, their will collapsed. The lionesses pressed the rout, cutting down those too slow to flee. By the time the dust settled, 11 hyenas lay still. Their dominance over the stream ended. The surviving hyenas scattered into the outskirts of their former territory, their laughter now reduced to thin, retreating echoes. But Amari's purpose was not yet fulfilled. In the hours after the battle, he followed their scent with Leah at his side, tracking the path toward the denning grounds. They found the remnants of the clan, females too young or injured to fight, and the litter of cubs hidden deep in a thicket. The lion's charge was swift, the outcome certain. 6 cubs fell before they could flee, and the defenders, outmatched and exhausted, were silenced in moments. The pride did not feed on them. The act was not for sustenance, but for permanence. A deliberate removal of any chance that the Nafisa clan might rise again. Only when the thicket lay still did Amari and Leah turn back toward the stream, their dominance sealed by more than victory in battle. In the seasons that followed, the stream flowed unchallenged through the heart of the Bele Pride's range. Among the Afar people, the year became a marker in memory, spoken of as the time before and after the great battle. Hyena hides, tanned in salt and sun, were fashioned into drums whose rhythms carried the story across generations. For the lions, the victory was measured not in territory alone, but in the absence of rivals. In the harsh arithmetic of the savannah, the drought had chosen its victor. Strength, unity, and ruthless resolve had left only one monarch at the water's edge. If this battle kept you hooked, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe now and don't miss the next war of the savannah.